And not to be too political, but okay, so if Trump wins, what do you see happening?
That's a great question.
Hey, awesome. Welcome, everyone. We are sitting here with Derek Sanderson, who is local EXP agent. We're in the same office, and we're here to talk about the election.
Wah, wah.
We have a looming election 7 days from today at the time of this filming. And so we're trying to see what is going to happen. So, Derek, first question right out the gate. What do you see happening? We have an election in 1 week. What do you see? How will that affect the housing market?
Yeah. So with the election in a week, we're already historically low numbers for sales and homes on the market, and we're seeing interest rates go up.
Yeah.
I think that trend is going to continue depending on who actually gets in office.
Okay. So depending on who gets in office, but you think generally speaking, the rates are going to continue to go up.
I do.
They've gone up about 0.7%. How in the last 30 days, how much have rates gone up?
Last 30 days, 88 basis points. So almost a full percent just in October.
Yeah.
And interest rates follow inflation, right? So the election does have an effect because there's a lot of people sitting on the sidelines because they're waiting to see what's going to happen. So once we get those results of the election, I think we're going to see a lot of movement. The question is what direction based on ultimately who is going to win the presidential seat.
And not to be too political, but okay, so if Trump wins, what do you see happening?
That's a great question. Only because I am not an economist. However, I think a lot of people are hedging their bets with the stock market and the run that it's had. I think that's going to continue if Trump gets into office, only because he's promising tax cuts. He's promising a lot of economic stimulation for businesses, which creates jobs and creates certainty for people. So I really think things could calm and get a little bit better.
Okay, and what happens if Kamala gets in?
I think we see inflation continue to run its course and continue to rise. We're seeing in the data that it's continuing to go up, even going into the election, which is kind of crazy because they were saying it was going down. So when you increase the federal budget, that increases our deficit, which makes the economy a lot less strong and actually makes it weaker. So it's going to depend on also what segments of the market we're looking at. Kamala's promising this $25,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers. Well, if that's the case, that's quote-unquote free money. That's an inflationary act, and that's going to put more buyers in the market. So if we don't have listings, supply and demand, which we've talked about before, it could artificially inflate prices.
Yeah, okay.
More handouts.
Okay, good. So at this point in time, what advice do you give to say I think there's a whole group of people who are rate locked. They got these 3% rates. They don't like their house anymore. They bought in 2020. They went out a bidding war with 10 other people. It's not exactly what they wanted. Their family has grown and they want to move. Yeah. What advice do you give to those folks? Like, what are they looking for in timing?
Yeah. Because of the uncertainty of the election, if you have the ability financially to make the move now, I think it's smart to try and make that move because interest rates could continue to go up, which means your monthly payment's going to go up, which means you're going to afford less and less in your purchasing power. So if you have that ability, I would say pull the trigger now. There's a lot of people that say, date the rate, marry the house. I don't always agree with that philosophy because we don't know when rates are going to come down. However, the trend we're seeing in October alone, we've almost seen an entire 1% raise in interest rates. I don't think people can afford to sit on the sidelines any longer.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us. Any other topics that you want to feel like important to discuss or?
We just came out of our sales meeting,
right,
and something we looked at was historically elections, what happens with the number of sales. 2016 going into November, we saw the numbers taper off, right? Yeah. Just like now, because people are kind of standing on the sidelines going, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't feel comfortable making this type of investment. And then what did we see in December of 2016? We saw a massive increase in the number of home sales because the results came out. People felt more peace. And so they actually jumped into the market and pulled the trigger. So
Yeah, wow.
we potentially could see that happen again. The problem is we have to have houses to actually sell people.
Right. Yeah. And that's a problem right now because supply is, low. Not as terrible as we've seen in years past, but it's still extremely low for the amount of
Extremely
population.
low.
Yeah, here in Chico. So
Yeah, and I mean, we talked a few months back. July was a record year for Chico, and not in a good way. We had a historic low number of sales. The numbers we're seeing for October are rivaling the numbers we talked about in July. So we're actually finding ourselves in a very similar situation.
yeah. Okay. Interesting. So we'll see. Seems like hey, if you can do it now. Do it especially before rates cut. They say they're going to go up again, but at some point they've got to come down, right? We've been saying that for like so long, but it's all dependent on inflation and
jobs numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Yeah.
But the hope is, and fingers crossed, depending on the results of the election, things will calm down. We'll start to see those rates come down a little bit, which then if you bought now, you just refinance into that lower rate. But again, the biggest piece of advice that I can give is don't make yourself house rich and cash poor. If it makes financial sense to do it now, absolutely do it. Pull the trigger. Don't wait. But if it's going to put you in a situation that jeopardizes you and your family and your housing, then stay where you're at, where you're comfortable, and wait. Just know that wait could mean you're going to pay a lot more in 3, 6, 9 months, depending on what interest rates do. But if you can do it, pull the trigger now.
Interesting. All right. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate your time. We'll see you on the next one.